Dude, what are you doing? Dude, you haven't heard? Sperm in men is dropping like crazy. I'm getting my testosterone on. Really? Interesting. Hey, do you know how much a PS5 is going for? What? Yeah, I just came into a lot of money, so I'm thinking of splurging a bit. Yeah, I think I'm gonna book a trip to Greece too if you wanna come. Yeah, so a month ago, there was these massive headlines about sperm count declining up to 50 to 60% in men since 1973. So like this global decline in sperm count. And so what the study actually showed was that sperm concentration has dropped a little over 50% since 1973, and sperm count has dropped 62%. And what's even crazier is that the rate of decline is increasing. So they found that on average, sperm count was declining around 1.1% a year since 1972. But when they only looked at it from 2000 and on, they saw that it was declining every year by 2.6%. And the reason that this study is so significant is that you may have seen a few years ago, they put out a similar study, but that only included North America, Europe, and Australia. This study includes Central America, South America, Africa, and Asia. And they saw similar trends in those regions too. Yeah, so no one is safe. Unless, well, there is some research out there that suggests there's something you can do about it. And I'm gonna tell you what that is. All right, but first, why is this important? Why is this worth talking about? So one reason is for all these scary article titles. Some people are going as far as to call this a male fertility crisis, like end of mankind, humankind, come on, it's 2022. I mean, you got one expert saying, such a decline clearly represents a decline in the capacity of the population to reproduce. I don't have like a teleprompter, okay? And so apparently, according to previous studies, when you get under 40 million sperm per milliliter, that's when you start getting into problems. And so even though the current number is above that, the fact that we're closer to that threshold, that suggests that the percentage of men falling under that threshold is increasing. And as it stands today, 1 in 8 couples in the US struggles with infertility. And another thing to keep in mind though is that sperm concentration and sperm count don't give the full picture of fertility. Another thing to look at is sperm motility. So that's how well your sperm moves, how healthy your sperm is. But even looking at sperm motility, the news isn't good. According to one study, the percentage of men with normal sperm motility count has decreased by 10% in the last 16 years. So it seems like across all metrics, it's not looking good. Hey, but it's not all bad news, right? We can save on those vasectomies. All right, so what can you do about it? Well, it turns out there's some evidence that suggests that you can do something right now, today, that could make an impact on your own sperm health. It turns out what you eat could have a huge impact on your sperm health. So in the largest study of its kind ever conducted, researchers found that men consuming a vegetarian-like diet had a median sperm count that was 29 million more than those on a standard Western diet. And to be clear, these people were not full-on vegetarians. But there's another study with shocking results where they look at what happens when you remove animal products completely from the diet. They looked at vegan men and they compared them to non-vegan men. And they found that vegan men had nearly twice as much sperm count and 17.5 times more rapid motile sperm than their non-vegan counterparts. So this means that vegan men were performing better in key metrics that the rest of the population is struggling with. And so it's really shocking, don't worry, I'll stop being shocked in a second, to think that if these results hold and they're representative of the global population, that means that diet accounts for 70% of the sperm loss that we've seen. And so you may be thinking, hold on, how does this make sense? And researchers from both studies said it has to do with the higher antioxidant intake. And if you're like me, I used to think that antioxidants was just that thing people would use as an excuse to drink a lot of wine. But it turns out they're actually pretty good for you. So the way that it even works is your body is exposed to these things called free radicals, which either your body produces or you get it from external factors. But basically by just existing, you get exposed to free radicals. And a buildup of free radicals causes something called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is linked to all kinds of horrible things like heart disease, cancer, autoimmune diseases, and in today's day and age, the worst of all, aging skin. However, eating foods containing a lot of antioxidants may slow down the oxidative process. And to get an idea of the scale of difference between plant foods and animal foods, it turns out that, according to one study, plant foods have 64 times more antioxidants on average than animal foods. Dr. Michael Greger made a great video looking at the study and doing an analysis on the study, so I recommend y'all check that out. But here's a small snippet from the video.
I'm gonna choose the least healthy plant food I can think of. Good old American iceberg lettuce. which I think of as basically just water. It does not have 1,157 units of antioxidant power. It has 17. Still beats out fish, though, which averages 11. Even salmon, 7. Chicken, 6. Iceberg lettuce has nearly 3 times more antioxidants than chicken.
So it turns out people who eat a plant-based diet are eating enough antioxidants to keep their sperm healthy and happy. So those soy boys, fertile boys. However, make sure that you're not getting your antioxidants from supplements and instead you're getting them from whole foods. So it turns out when people tried supplementing antioxidants, it increased their health risks and chances of dying. Ooh. Yeah, so stick to the whole foods. And the benefits don't stop there. A plant-based diet might also be able to improve your sex life. A survey in 2020 found that 84% of vegetarians were satisfied with their sex lives, compared to 59% of meat eaters. But in that same study, they found that 95% of vegans were satisfied with their sex lives. So for all of you afraid about the flatulence from the beans, it could be spicing it up. And it makes sense too. I met this British girl a few weekends ago and she said she was, shagging the vegan chef, so. And look, I can tell you from personal experience that, but there's even a scene in the Game Changers movie, if you haven't seen it, where, so they measure the frequency and hardness of 3 different college-aged men. They measured it at night after they had a meat-based meal and then the next night after they had a vegan meal. And the results were favorable for the plant-based diet. Hardness went up and frequency went up almost 6 times for one of them. So, but yeah, I recommend watching the documentary if you want to see the whole scene. It's pretty funny. And Avatar 2 just came out. So if you're in a James Cameron bender, you could add this to your list. The stereotypes of the big, burly, masculine man slugging down the stakes doesn't seem to be backed by science. And I mean, it's almost impossible to ignore that. Okay, so while I was editing this, I realized that I made a mistake. And so what I meant to say in this part was that total meat production has over quadrupled since 1961, and meat consumption per person has nearly doubled since 1961. All right, now back to your regularly scheduled programming. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I didn't have an animal product at every meal. But by the time I got to college, I did. And I feel like a lot of people have had or have that same experience. So if your sperm count concerns you or someone you love, a whole food plant-based diet might be just what you're looking for. Also, I do want to make a note that even though the studies that I cited are promising, I'd love to see a lot more extensive research done on the topic. And I want to take this chance to remind everybody that I'm not a health professional. I'm just some guy on the internet. But anyway, subscribe to see more content and don't forget to take your B12 supplement.